Schools and Schools, another story by O. Henry. Old Jerome Warren lived in a $100,000 house in East 15th Street. He was so rich that he could allow himself to walk to his office for his health. His wife was dead, and he had no children. But his wife's niece Barbara lived in his house. He also had an adopted son, the son of an old friend named Gilbert. Gilbert was an artist and had a studio a little way from old Jerome's house. Gilbert and Barbara were friends. People hoped that someday they would marry and spend the old man's money together. But here I have to introduce some difficulties. 30 years ago, when old Jerome was young, he had a brother named Dick. Dick went west hoping to find gold. Nothing was heard of him for many years. Then one day, old Jerome got a letter from his brother. It was clear that the man who wrote it, he was very ill. In fact, Dick wrote that he was dying and was writing with great difficulty. In his letter, he asked his brother to take care of Nevada, his 19-year-old daughter, the only child he had. He was going to send her to Jerome at once. Old Jerome could not say no to his dying brother, so he said yes. Old Jerome, Barbara, and Gilbert met Nevada Warren at the station. She was not a very big girl, but strong and good-looking. "I'm sure we shall be the best friends," said Barbara, kissing Nevada. "I hope so," said Nevada. "Dear little niece," said old Jerome, "you're welcome to my house. It's your house now." "Thanks," said Nevada. "And I'm going to call you cousin," said Gilbert. When we hear about any difficulties between one man and two women, or one woman and two men, we call such situations triangles. One morning, old Jerome sat a long time after breakfast reading his newspaper. A servant brought in a note for Miss Nevada. "A messenger has brought it," she said. "He's waiting for an answer." Nevada took the letter. She knew it was from Gilbert before she opened it because of the little gold palette in the left-hand corner of the envelope. All of Gilbert's envelope had such palettes. Nevada opened the envelope and looked at the note attentively. She looked at it for some time and then went up to her uncle. "Uncle Jerome," she said, "is Gilbert a nice boy?" "Oh, yeah, of course he is," said old Jerome, who was very fond of both Gilbert and Nevada. "He's a very nice boy. I raised him myself. Why do you ask?" "Are you sure, Uncle Jerome, that Gilbert will never write anything that is not nice?" "Of course I am, my dear," said old Jerome. "I'm sure that Gilbert cannot write anything that is not nice. But I don't understand. What are you asking me?" "Read this note and see for yourself," said Nevada. "Do you think that everything in it is all right? I don't know much about city people and their manners. That's why I'm asking you." Old Jerome took Gilbert's note and looked at it attentively. He read it twice, then the third time. "Why, child," he said at last, "I am sure of the boy, and I have not made a mistake. There is nothing bad in the note. He only asks you and Barbara to be ready at 4 o'clock this afternoon for an automobile drive. I don't see anything bad in it. I hope you will have a good time. Will it be all right to go? Asked Nevada. Yeah, sure, child, why not? Go and have a nice time. Will you come with us, Uncle? Said Nevada. I? Oh, no, no, no. I've got once in the car that Gilbert was driving. Never again. But never mind me. You and Barbara go. Yeah, but I will not. No, thanks a lot. Nevada ran to the door and said to the servant, Of course we'll go. I'm sure Miss Barbara will be glad to go too. Tell the messenger boy to tell Mr. Warren that we will go. I'm sorry, Nevada, dear, said the old man. Why aren't you going to send Gilbert a note? Only a line or two. No, said Nevada. It will take too much time to write a note, and the boy is waiting for an answer. Gilbert will understand, I'm sure. I have never ridden an automobile in my life, but, Uncle, I used to paddle a canoe down Little Devil River, and it was not easy. 2 months passed. One day, Barbara was sitting in the study of her uncle's house. She was alone. Uncle Jerome and Nevada had gone to the theater. Barbara had not wanted to go. She wanted to stay home. At last, Barbara began to understand that the beautiful Western witch was getting a lasso on the young man she herself wanted. Barbara sat at the writing table holding a letter in her hand. The letter was not addressed to her. It was addressed to Nevada Warren. In the left-hand corner of the envelope was bilgered gold palette. The letter had been brought at 9 o'clock, after Nevada had left. What was in the letter? Barbara could not guess. But oh, how she wanted to know! She could not open the envelope by means of steam or by any other method. She was a lady, and ladies do not do such things. We all know that. She had held the envelope up to a strong light in order to read the lines. But no, she could not read a word. At 11:30, old Jerome and Nevada returned from the theater. Old Jerome was tired and went to bed at once. Nevada came into the study where Barbara was still sitting. She sat down in an armchair trying to unbutton her long gloves. She began telling Barbara about the play she had just seen. Here is the letter for you, dear, said Barbara. It came just after you had gone. Who is it from? Asked Nevada, struggling with the button on her glove. I don't know, said Barbara with a smile. I think it is from Gilbert because the envelope has a little gold palette in the corner. You can see it for yourself. What can he write to me about? Said Nevada. We are all alike, said Barbara. All women try to guess what is in the letter before they open it. So they study the envelope. And it's not of great help. Open it and read it, dear. Here it is. She was going to throw a letter to Nevada, but the girl said, Oh, I cannot take these gloves off. It's always so difficult. Oh, Barbara, open the envelope and read the letter, please. Why, dear, the letter is for you. How can I ask other people to read Gilbert's letter? Nevada raised her beautiful blue eyes from her gloves and said, Nobody writes me anything that everybody cannot read. Read it, Barbara. Maybe Gilbert wants to take us for a drive again tomorrow. All right, dear, said Barbara. I'll read it if you like. She opened the envelope and quickly read the letter. Then she read it again and looked at Nevada, who was still looking at her gloves. Suddenly she smiled. Nevada, she said, why did you ask me to read this letter? I'm sure it was written for your eyes only, not for mine. Nevada forgot her gloves for a moment. Read it aloud, she said. You have already read it, so you can read it again. If Mr. Warren has written something bad to me, everybody should know it. Well, said Barbara, this is what the letter says. Dearest Nevada, come to my studio at 12 o'clock tonight. Do not be late. I shall be waiting for you. Barbara rose and gave the letter to Nevada. I'm very sorry that I have read it, she said. It isn't like Gilbert. There must be some mistake. I don't understand how he could write such a letter. I hope he will explain everything. Let's forget it. And now I must go to bed. Good night, dear. Nevada looked at her watch. It said 11:45. She went out of the room and ran quickly to the front door. She went out into the snowstorm. Gilbert Warren's studio was only a little way from old Jerome's house. The snow lay in foot deep in the street, and she walked with difficulty. Hello, little girl, a policeman called her. It's too late for such a little girl to be out. But Nevada took no notice of him and went on. There was a light in Gilbert's window. He was waiting for her. She knew his window because she had been in the studio before with Barbara and Uncle Jerome. On the 8th floor, she found room 89 and knocked at the door. Gilbert opened the door. He had a pencil in his hand and a pipe in his mouth. The pipe fell down on the floor. Am I late? Asked Nevada. I came as quickly as I could. Uncle and I have been to the theater this evening. Here I am, Gilbert. Gilbert was standing in the door with his mouth open. Oh, you asked me to come, said Nevada simply, and I came. You said so in your letter. Why did you send for me? Did you read my letter? Asked Gilbert. No, I did not, said Nevada. Barbara read it to me. Your letter said, come to my studio at 12 o'clock tonight, so don't be late. I shall be waiting for you. I thought you were ill, but you look quite well. Cried Gilbert. I'll tell you why I asked you to come, Nevada. I wanted to ask you to marry me at once, tonight. That is why I asked you to come. Will you? Of course I will, answered Nevada. You knew long ago that I would marry you. I'm sure you know it. And it will be so nice to be married in a snowstorm at night. In fact, I don't like rich wedding ceremonies in church full of guests. Wait a minute, said Gilbert. I want to do a little phoning. He went to the bedroom and closed the door behind him. Then he began to telephone. Is that you, Jack? Wake up. I need you at once. I'm going to be married right away. So I want 2 witnesses. Wake up, bring your sister too. You must. Nevada is here waiting. We are both waiting for you. What? Oh, you will? Oh, good boy. I knew you were a good friend. Gilbert returned to the room where Nevada was waiting. He said, I had to telephone Jack Pearson, an old friend of mine. I asked him and his sister to be our witnesses. They had promised to be here at 11:45, but they are late. I have phoned them to hurry. They will be here in a few minutes. Oh, Nevada, I'm the happiest man in the world. Nevada, dear, what did you do with the letter I sent you this evening? Oh, I have it with me, said Nevada and gave him the letter. Gilbert took the letter out of the envelope and looked at it attentively. Then he looked at Nevada thoughtfully. Were you angry with me because I asked you to come to my studio at midnight? He asked. Oh, why, no, said Nevada. How could I be angry if you needed me? Out west, when a friend sends for you and asks you to hurry, you get there first and talk about it after. So we are not afraid of snowstorm. Nevada, said Gilbert, Jack and his sister will be here in a few minutes. I shall try to find a raincoat for you to put on. It will take some time, so you can look through the evening paper on the table. Well, I think there is an article on the front page. It's about your section on the West. I know it will interest you. He went to his bedroom and returned in a minute or two. Nevada was not reading when he came in. She had not moved. She looked at him nervously. I was going to tell you something, she said, before you must know that Father never sent me to school. I have never learned to read or to write, so if you... At this very moment, the door opened, and Jack and his sister came in. When Mr. and Mrs. Warren were riding home after the wedding ceremony, Gilbert said, "Nevada, do you want to know what I really wrote in the letter you received last night?" "Yes, of course," said Nevada. "What was it?" "Okay, word for word, it was like this," said her husband. "My dear Miss Warren, you were absolutely right about the name of the flower yesterday. It was not lilac, as I thought." "All right," said Nevada, "but let's forget it. The joke is on Barbara anyway."